Imagine, if you will, pouring your absolute very soul into a philosophical text, like synthesizing the axiomatic logic of René Descartes, the hyperreal dread of Jean Baudrillard, the, epistemological synthesis of Immanuel Kant,
Okay.
and the blistering socio-economic critique of Karl Marx. You weave all these towering intellectual frameworks together, forging this devastating analysis of existence, morality, capital accumulation.
Often magnum opus.
Exactly. You submit this magnum opus to your university professor only to receive a giant red F because you applied all of this brilliant philosophy to a pixelated, mustachioed Italian plumber.
It's a profound tragedy, really.
It really is. So welcome to Off the Record, the title of our show where we do a deep dive into the hidden layers of the world around us. I am your host, and sitting across from me is my esteemed colleague.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here.
Tonight, you, the listener, are joining us for a very specific late-night academic postmortem. We are looking at the brutal collision between outsider philosophical ambition and the unyielding rigidity of the institutional grading pen.
What we are undertaking tonight is actually a retroactive scholarly reevaluation, a deep dive into our own past analysis, which is, a necessary, if sometimes painful, endeavor for anyone truly committed to the pursuit of objective truth.
Right. Because if you've been following our deep dives, you might remember an audio session we recorded a while back that garnered a massive amount of attention. We spent hours subjecting a very specific digital artifact to intense philosophical scrutiny.
Oh, I remember it well. We were talking about the viral tweet posted by a user named Phil Jamison, which featured a transcription of his February 18th, 2022, Philosophy 101 midterm essay.
And the canonical title of that work, of course, is Mario, the Idea versus Mario, the Man.
It remains a wildly fascinating piece of outsider philosophy.
Yeah.
I mean, in our original analysis, we treated the text with the utmost reverence.
We did.
We extracted the densely packed microcosm of existential dread that the student had seemingly woven into a mere handful of paragraphs.
Yeah, we discussed Platonic dualism, Cartesian epistemology, the nature of the simulacrum. We essentially elevated this sleep-deprived, panicked student to the pantheon of modern existentialist thinkers.
We did indeed. But here is where the paradigm shifts entirely.
Exactly. The reason we are returning to this text tonight, the reason we are doing this specific deep dive, is because we have come into possession of groundbreaking new evidence.
We don't just have the digital transcription anymore. We have obtained a photograph of the actual physical graded paper that was submitted by the student and returned by the professor.
And this visual artifact changes the fundamental nature of the text. It introduces a secondary, highly antagonistic voice, which is the professor's red grading pen.
Right. It transforms the document from a monologue into a dialogue. Or, perhaps more accurately, a physical altercation.
A violent institutional smackdown. So our mission for you tonight, as you listen, is to methodically cross-reference our previous high-minded philosophical analysis against the harder empirical reality of that red ink.
We are going to conduct a structured reevaluation, examining the exact points where the student's theoretical framework violently collides with the expectations of the academy.
It is the ultimate confrontation between theory and reality. You have the physical image of the document right there in front of you, right?
You do, yes.
Yeah.
Right here in front of me, illuminated by the desk lamp. And I have to say, the red ink is unapologetic.
Okay, let's unpack this systematically. We have to establish the epistemological baseline first. In our original deep dive, we spent a considerable amount of time dissecting the very first line of the essay.
Yes, the opening gambit.
Right. The student opens the midterm with the sentence, "Everyone knows Mario is cool as fuck." Now, in our previous session, you made a very compelling argument about the structural function of this opening.
I did, and from a purely structural standpoint, I still stand by the architecture of that argument.
Hear me out. Bring us back to Descartes for a second. Explain the mechanism of the axiom for the listener, because it's crucial to understanding what the student is attempting here.
Certainly. In the 17th century, René Descartes wanted to rebuild all of human knowledge from the ground up. To do this, he employed a method of radical doubt.
The radical doubt, yes.
He hypothesized an evil demon whose sole purpose was to deceive him about everything. His senses, his memories, the physical world, even basic mathematics.
Wow.
Descartes asked, if this demon is deceiving me about absolutely everything, what is the one single thing I can still know for sure? What is the bedrock truth that cannot be doubted?
The famous cogito ergo sum.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think, therefore I am. Even if my thoughts are being manipulated by a demon, the very act of doubting proves that there is a thinking entity doing the doubting.
Right.
That is an axiom, a foundational a priori truth requiring no external proof. My argument regarding this essay was that the student, facing the terrifying philosophical void of a midterm paper, was attempting to establish a modern axiom.
They posited that Mario's inherent coolness was an objective truth of the universe.
Precisely. A law of physics around which they could build their complex argument.
It's a brilliant rhetorical maneuver. You establish absolute, undeniable certainty right out of the gate so that you can later juxtapose it against the terrifying unknowns of the human, or in this case, the plumber's condition.
It is.
But I have to push back a little here, playing devil's advocate. Is it really an axiomatic anchor, or is it just a lazy student trying to be funny at 3 in the morning?
Well, that is the perpetual tension of outsider art, isn't it?
Yeah.
Intent versus impact. Whether intentional or accidental, the structural function remains. It sets a baseline reality.
Yeah, that's fair.
But as you rightly point out, we must now confront the physical reality of the graded document.
Right, because I'm looking at the margins right now. The professor has taken their red pen, drawn a very tight, deliberate circle around the word fuck, and written in the margin, underlined heavily for emphasis, horrible opening.
A stark, immediate rebuke.
But let's look at the why here. Why does the professor react this way? Isn't the professor acting like a terribly rigid empiricist?
How so?
By focusing entirely, exclusively on the profanity, aren't they completely missing the theoretical framework the student is trying to establish for you, the reader? They are dismissing the logic because they don't like the vocabulary.
Oh, absolutely. It is a classic example of institutional myopia,
Yeah.
and it reveals the underlying psychology of academic grading.
Exactly.
The academy demands a very specific aesthetic of intellectualism. Professors are often subconsciously policing the vernacular rather than engaging with the underlying logic.
They see the profanity not as a bold, axiomatic anchor, but simply as a violation of academic decorum.
Precisely. The form of the argument invalidates the substance of the argument in the eyes of the institution.
It's intellectual cowardice.
Yeah.
Horrible opening. They are rejecting the premise based on aesthetics. The professor is basically saying, you aren't wearing the right clothes, so you aren't allowed in the building.
It is deeply exclusionary.
But this brings us back to the framing of the original tweet, which provides such vital context. When Phil Jameson posted this, the caption was, "I never should have gone back to school." All lowercase. 0 punctuation.
We analyzed that typography at length in our initial session. Stripping away capitalization and punctuation is an intentional linguistic signal of profound exhaustion.
The typography of surrender.
Yes. The author is clearly a non-traditional student, someone who has returned to the crushing, high-stakes environment of higher education after time away, and they are buckling under the pressure of having to perform this specific academic aesthetic you just described.
It's the 3 a.m. panic. That visceral, terrifying moment where your choices crystallize into pure regret. You're staring at a blinking cursor, wondering why you thought taking Philosophy 101 was a good idea.
And when we cross-reference that exhausted tweet with this physically graded paper, the reality is just tragic.
You can literally see the exhaustion bleeding into the midterm. The student is desperately trying to establish a shared reality. Mario is cool, and the institution immediately, violently smacks them down with a red pen.
It is a profound collision between a weary human being seeking intellectual connection and a relentless, unforgiving academic machine.
Yeah.
The student is seeking comfort in the familiar pop culture icon of their youth, trying to dress it up in the velvet robes of philosophical inquiry, and the professor instantly rejects the attempt. The red, horrible opening is the institution declaring right out of the gate that the student does not belong here.
It really is quite sad when you look at the mechanism of it. The academy isn't just grading a paper, it's enforcing a class boundary. But the beauty of this text is that the student pushes forward regardless.
They do.
They push past that initial devastating rebuke, and this is where the essay pivots brilliantly into the realm of pure epistemology and solipsism.
Before we delve into the solipsistic void, would you mind passing the water? Or actually, given the sheer analytical rigor required for this next section, perhaps something slightly stronger. We have a long night ahead of us.
Oh, I think that's entirely appropriate for a late-night session of Off the Record. Let me just pour us a glass of this quite excellent bourbon we have in the studio, just a splash to lubricate the philosophical gears.
Cheers to academic inquiry and to uncovering the truth, whatever it may be.
Cheers. Okay, right. So, moving into the epistemological void. In our original audio analysis, we highlighted the sheer violence of the student's next intellectual leap.
Yes.
After establishing that Mario is cool, they write, but who knows what he's thinking? Who knows why he crushes turtles?
This is a masterful articulation of the problem of other minds, a cornerstone of epistemological philosophy.
Break that down for the listener. What exactly is the problem of other minds, and why is it so terrifying?
Simply put, it is the philosophical challenge of proving that anyone other than yourself actually possesses a conscious mind.
Okay.
We can observe the external behavior of other people, or in this case, video game characters, but their internal subjective experience is completely inaccessible to us.
So we can't actually know.
Right. In the 20th century, Ludwig Wittgenstein used the analogy of the beetle in a box. Imagine everyone has a box, and inside is something they call a beetle. No one can look into anyone else's box.
Gotcha.
Everyone says they know what a beetle is by looking at their own, but for all we know, everyone has something completely different in their box. Or perhaps the boxes are empty. The internal state is an unobservable black box.
Right. Haha. So we are trapped in observation. The student is looking at the raw empirical data of Mario's behavior, the relentless serial crushing of local wildlife, and recognizing that the internal motivation, the subjective why, is impenetrable.
Exactly.
We can measure the velocity of Mario's jump, we can calculate his trajectory, but we cannot measure the inner emotional state of the Italian plumber. We don't know if he feels joy, malice, or just a cold mechanical emptiness.
Precisely. The student is grappling with the terrifying isolation of consciousness. But look at the visual artifact. Look at the red ink directly above the profound question about the turtles.
Oh man, I'm looking at it. The professor has scribbled with clearly agitated, hurried penmanship to save the princess. Also gross.
To save the princess, also gross.
Haha. I has to admit, finding the phrase also gross in a graded academic paper at the university level is incredibly funny to me, but it's also incredibly revealing.
It is highly unprofessional terminology,
Right.
certainly. But it also demonstrates a complete failure of pedagogical engagement.
Okay, think about it like this. Imagine you are standing in a modern art museum. You are looking at a Pablo Picasso painting.
Okay.
A beautiful, fractured, cubist masterpiece that breaks down the human face into its raw, geometric truths, ignoring how a face should logically look in order to show you multiple perspectives simultaneously.
Right.
And the professor walks up next to you, points a red pen at the canvas, and writes, "That's not what a face looks like."
That is an exceptionally sharp analogy. The professor is demanding representational realism from a work of abstract deconstruction.
Exactly. The professor is completely trapped in the literal narrative of the video game. To save the princess, they are accepting the pre-packaged surface-level plot provided by the Nintendo instruction manual, and they absolutely refuse to engage with the philosophical abstraction the student is offering.
It's a complete analytical failure on their part.
The student is saying, we cannot truly know the inner machinations of another conscious entity, and the professor is essentially saying, did you even read the back of the box?
The professor is demanding a literal interpretation of a text that the student is actively attempting to deconstruct. And the professor's visceral aesthetic reaction, also gross to the phrase crushes turtles, shows how deeply uncomfortable they are.
Right.
They're uncomfortable with the student stripping away the colorful, sanitized 8-bit aesthetic to reveal the stark, violent reality of the action. The Academy wants a sanitized discourse.
Also gross. I just love it. It's so defensive. But the student, bless them, doesn't stop there. They dive even deeper into the void. They abandon Descartes and plunge straight into postmodernism.
A bold move.
This is the moment in the essay that completely derailed my brain the first time we read it. The student questions why we think of Mario as fondly as we think of the, and I quote the essay here, mythical, non-existent, Dr. Pepper.
Ah, yes. The Baudrillard hyperreality analysis. We spent an inordinate amount of time on this in our previous session, and for good reason.
Let's refresh the listener's memory, because this is where the essay goes from weird to genuinely profound. Explain Jean Baudrillard and the concept of the simulacrum.
Well, Jean Baudrillard was a French sociologist and philosopher who wrote extensively about how media, culture, and capitalism have fundamentally altered our relationship with reality.
Okay.
His most famous work, Simulacra and Simulation, outlines how society has replaced all reality and meaning with symbols and signs. A simulacrum is a copy of a thing that has no original. It is a truth that conceals the fact that there is no underlying truth.
Give us a concrete example of how that works.
Baudrillard famously used Disneyland as an example. He argued that Disneyland is presented as imaginary in order to make us believe that the rest of Los Angeles is real.
Oh, right.
When in fact, all of Los Angeles is no longer real, but belongs to the hyperreal order and to the order of simulation. The boundary between reality and representation collapses.
Right. And applying that to the student's brilliant essay, Dr. Pepper is the ultimate simulacrum. It is a synthetic profile of 23 flavors that references absolutely nothing in the natural world.
Nothing at all.
It is not an apple, it is not an orange, it is not a cherry, it is a manufactured concept, it is simply Dr. Pepper.
It is a corporate hallucination,
Mm.
a flavor without an origin in nature. And the student is drawing a direct parallel here.
Yeah.
They're suggesting that our fondness for Mario, this manufactured digital heroism, is as artificial and intangible as our fondness for a non-existent soda flavor. Mario is a simulacrum of a plumber who does not plumb, a hero whose heroism is merely programmed code.
It's amazing.
It is a total, devastating breakdown of objective truth. The student is showing us that we crave a reality that does not exist.
It's brilliant. But let's look at the professor's reaction on the graded paper. Below the Dr. Pepper line, what do we see?
The professor has inscribed 3 massive, heavily indented red question marks. Question mark, question mark,
I
question
just
mark.
for ink of confusion.
Exactly.
Right.
The professor is entirely flummoxed. The academic framework is shattered.
And you know what? That makes me angry. I feel myself becoming disproportionately defensive of the student right now because the professor's confusion, those 3 giant aggressive question marks, it doesn't invalidate the student's point. It proves the student's point.
How so? Walk me through the logic. Take a sip of that bourbon first.
The professor cannot process the hyperreal. The professor is looking at a profound postmodern dismantling of consumer identity, and their brain just shorts out. Question mark, question mark, question mark.
Ah, I see.
The student is showing them the matrix. The student is trying to explain that the soda isn't real, the plumber isn't real, the heroism isn't real. The very structures of meaning we rely on are synthetic.
Right.
And the professor is just mad because they wanted a traditional clean essay on Descartes. The professor's inability to comprehend the Dr. Pepper analogy validates Baudrillard's entire thesis about the loss of the real.
That is actually a surprisingly coherent defense of what is, on its face, a deeply erratic paragraph.
Thank you.
The professor's confusion is the friction generated when an institutional mind encounters the chaotic truth of the hyperreal.
I'm just saying, the student is operating on a level of semiotics that the Philosophy 101 curriculum is simply not equipped to handle. The institution is failing the student, not the other way around.
Perhaps we should pour another splash of bourbon. The semiotics are indeed growing dense tonight, and my throat is feeling a bit dry from the analytical rigor.
Let's just a healthy pour, because we are about to hit the grammatical smoke bomb and we need to be ready for it.
Ah, yes, the infamous transitional sentence.
We move to the next line of the essay, and it is just one word, a complete sentence, punctuated with a period consisting of a single word, perchance.
Haha, and this is where the visual artifact provides perhaps its most breathtaking comedic revelation. In the red ink, branching off from the word perchance, the professor has written with almost palpable exasperation, "You can't just say perchance."
You can't just say perchance. I'm sorry, I can't. That is so funny. It's the sheer desperation in the handwriting. You can feel the professor's grip on the red pen tightening.
It is visually hilarious, but we must try to maintain our scholarly distance here. Let's remember our mission.
Right.
If you recall our previous audio deep dive, we identified perchance as a vital structural element. It is a motif. Well, I was making a point about academic hedging. Let me try to reconstruct my argument. My brain is a bit fuzzy.
Yeah, you were talking about smoke bombs, the linguistic smoke bomb.
Right, the academic smoke bomb. You see, academic writing is notoriously institutionally non-committal.
Oh, totally.
Scholars are terrified of being demonstrably wrong. So they use phrases like "one might consider," or "it's perhaps possible that," or "it could be argued." They build elaborate, towering theories, but they always leave themselves an escape hatch. They avoid absolute declarations at all costs.
Intellectual cowardice. They hide behind the language.
Precisely. And the student took that entire grand tradition of intellectual cowardice, that centuries-old habit of scholars hedging their bets.
Yeah.
And they compressed it. They distilled the entire history of academic fear into a single, utterly misused adverb, perchance. It's a mockery of the academy. I'm sorry, I really, really love the word perchance.
You do.
I do. It's so wildly misplaced in modern syntax. It's beautiful. You can't just say perchance. But they did. The student did say it. And it worked. It transitioned the paragraph. It got us here. It's the ultimate linguistic defiance.
Wait, hold on. We need to reset. We are getting off track. I can feel us drifting. Let's get back to the structure of the deep dive. We need to talk about Immanuel Kant.
Oh.
Epistemologically. Let's talk about Kant.
Ah, yes.
Mm.
The Kantian transition. A very serious leap. You are correct.
You okay over there? The bourbon hitting you.
I am profoundly okay. My mind is a steel trap. Please, continue with Kant. We must synthesize the frameworks.
Okay. So right after perchance, the student writes, I believe it was Kant who said, experience without theory is blind, but theory without experience is mere intellectual play.
A heavy, heavy paraphrase of the Critique of Pure Reason.
Break it down for us. Break down Kant. Because he is notoriously dense, and the listener needs to understand the weight of what the student is doing here.
Immanuel Kant was attempting to mediate the great philosophical civil war of the 18th century.
Right.
On one side, you had the empiricists like John Locke and David Hume who believed that all knowledge comes from raw sensory data, experience.
Okay.
On the other side, you had the rationalists like Descartes who believed knowledge comes from internal logic and reason, theory. Kant argued that they are both half right and half wrong. You absolutely need both.
Both of them.
Sensory input experience without a mental framework to organize it is just chaotic, meaningless blindness. But a mental framework theory without actual sensory input from the world is just an empty game in your head. The synthesis of the two is the only way we perceive reality.
Right. The synthesis. So the student takes this monumental, paradigm-shifting 18th century Enlightenment thought, and they apply it directly, without hesitation, to the Mushroom Kingdom.
It's astounding.
They write, Mario exhibits experience by crushing Turts all day, but he exhibits theory by stating, let's go.
Crushing turds.
Yes, Turts. We talked about this before, the degradation of the language. Going from a high-minded academic paraphrase of the Critique of Pure Reason directly into the Twitch chat, internet slang vernacular of Turts shows the complete erosion of the academic ego.
Yes.
The student is just too tired to maintain the facade of professionalism. The mask is slipping.
But look at the red pen. Look at what the professor does to Kant's grand synthesis. The professor has aggressively, furiously circled the word Turts.
They hated Turts. They absolutely hated it.
They despised it. It offended their sensibilities.
Hmm.
But that isn't the breaking point. The true collapse of the professor's patience, the moment the institutional dam breaks, happens in the very next sentence.
Yeah, man, yeah.
After establishing Mario as a Kantian paragon of synthesized experience and theory, the student abandons all scholarly distance. They break the fourth wall of academic writing and actively, emotionally cheer for the subject of the essay. They write, "Keep it up, baby."
Keep it up, baby.
And what has the professor written next to that, punctuated by no fewer than 5 red question marks?
The professor wrote stop. And then question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark.
Stop.
You know, I'm looking at that word stop, and it breaks my heart a little bit.
It breaks your heart.
It does. Think about it logically. The student was finally feeling something. This whole essay, they've been struggling.
That is true.
They've been alienated by the problem of other minds. They've been questioning the very fabric of reality with the Dr. Pepper simulacrum. They've been trying to force Immanuel Kant into a Nintendo 64 game. It's been a struggle.
A massive struggle.
And for one fleeting, beautiful second, they actually connect with the text. They feel genuine, unironic human enthusiasm. Keep it up, baby. They're rooting for Mario. They're rooting for themselves to finish the paper. It's a moment of pure, transcendent joy.
It is an outpouring of unmediated subjective emotion. The raw human spirit breaking through the dense thicket of philosophical jargon.
Yes, exactly. And what does the cold, unfeeling institution do? It just says stop. It suppresses the emotion. It crushes the student spirit, just like Mario crushes the Turts.
Yeah.
The institution is the villain here. The academy doesn't want joy. It wants compliance. Kant loved video games, you know.
Immanuel Kant died in 1804.
Well, yeah, obviously. I know that. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if he had a Nintendo Switch, he would have loved them. He would have understood the synthesis of the Let's Go framework.
The Let's Go framework. I believe that is a newly established philosophical school of thought. Let me top off your glass. We are entering the Marxist phase of the essay, and we are going to need fortification.
Oh, God, the socioeconomics. Yes, pour generously. Please, we need it for the turdies. We have to talk about the turdies.
Now, let's be entirely objective here. The transition in the final paragraph it's genuinely stunning in its audacity.
It really is.
The student completely abandons the realm of epistemology and cognitive theory and shifts gears into a devastating, structurally sound socioeconomic critique. Now, looking at this purely through a Marxist lens without taking a stance on the politics themselves, Of course, just analyzing the framework the student is deploying, they examine the illusion of risk under capitalism.
The illusion of the heroic risk. This is where it gets heavy.
The student writes, when Mario leaves his place of safety to stomp a turtle, he knows that he may die. And we must note, as we did before, the capital D in die.
Right. Elevating it to an absolute existential finality, the tragic hero risking everything for the greater good. It's the mythological narrative we are fed.
But what does the red pen say to this profound meditation on mortality? The professor has circled the word turdy, clearly exhausted by the continued escalating degradation of the word turtle.
Right.
And next to the capitalized die, they have simply written, okay.
Okay. That's all they have to say to the concept of absolute mortality? Okay. It's so dismissive.
The professor is entirely checked out. They have stopped engaging with the text as a philosophical document, but the student is just getting started.
Yeah, they are.
The student shatters the illusion of heroism by bringing up the game's core economic mechanic, which is collecting gold coins for extra lives. They write, and yet, for a man who can purchase lives with money, a life becomes a mere store of value.
It's a capital accumulate survival purchased with hoarded wealth. This means the heroism is fraudulent.
Right.
If you can literally buy your way out of death by collecting floating gold coins, you aren't actually risking anything at all. Your heroism is insulated by your wealth.
Applying the labor theory of value, it strips life of its sanctity. It commodifies existence. Mario is not a hero braving the unknown dangers of the Mushroom Kingdom. He is an aggressive investor managing a portfolio of existence. His risk is mitigated by his capital.
And this leads to the crown jewel, the absolute best line of the paper. I think about this line all the time. The student writes, a tax that can be paid for, much as a rich man feels any law with a fine, is a price.
Yes, the fine is a price. It is a brilliant observation of systemic inequality.
Let me explain this, because I explained it before and it was brilliant, and I want to make sure the listener really gets it, because it's just so true. It's about parking tickets.
Go on. Tell the parking ticket story.
Okay. If you are poor, right, if you are just a normal working class person, a $200 parking ticket it's terrible. It's a massive deterrent. You do not park in the illegal spot because the fine ruins your week. It ruins your budget. It's an enforcement mechanism.
It enforces behavioral compliance through financial terror.
Exactly. Behavioral compliance. But if you are a billionaire, a $200 fine isn't a punishment. It's not a deterrent at all. It's just a price.
Right.
It's VIP parking. You just pay the city $200 to park your luxury car wherever you want. The law literally does not exist for you in the same way it exists for everyone else. It's just a menu of prices for bad behavior.
That is precisely the mechanism the student is highlighting. Corporations do the exact same thing with environmental fines. $1 million fine for dumping chemicals into a river isn't a punishment if the dumping saved the corporation $10 million.
Right.
It's just a business expense. The penalty does not deter the action. The hoarded wealth insulates the actor from the consequence.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's the deepest thing I've ever heard applied to a video game. Mario falling into a pit of lava isn't a tragedy, it's just a transaction fee. He pays a life, which he bought with gold coins, to keep going. He is completely insulated from consequence by his wealth.
It's a rigorous Marxist critique.
Yeah.
But let us look at the visual evidence of the artifact. What is the professor's response to this profound dismantling of systemic inequality?
I can't even look. My vision is a little blurry anyway. Tell me, what did they write?
Next to the profound sentence about the tax and the fine being a price, the professor has simply written, fine.
Oh my God.
And below that, where the student asserts that Mario is effectively a one-percenter, the professor has written, why are we saying this? And just below that, a heavily underlined what?
Why are we saying this? I'll tell you why we are saying this. Because it is the philosophical truth. The professor is just trying to shut down the discourse.
You think the professor is actively suppressing Marxist thought in Philosophy 101?
I do. The institution doesn't want the student to realize the truth. They don't want the student to realize that they're just a worker hoarding coins trying to survive, while the Marios of the world are buying extra lives.
You are becoming very animated. You're waving your hands a lot.
I am animated because it's unfair. The student wrote a masterpiece, a genuine masterpiece of modern thought, and they're getting a what from a professor who probably couldn't even explain the difference between use value and exchange value. By the way, you know what? The way you explain Marxism, the way you explain all of this, you're just incredibly smart.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
No, I mean it. I really mean it. Has anyone ever told you that? You just sit there looking impeccable, so calm, and you weave these incredibly complex theories together. Descartes, Baudrillard, Kant, you just pull them out of thin air.
Well,
I always look forward to recording off the record with you. You're a really, really good friend.
thank you. I really value our friendship, too. It's rare. It's so rare to find someone who can traverse the hyperreal with such, enthusiasm. You make it fun, even when we are staring into the bleak, terrifying void of capital accumulation and the loss of objective meaning. You make it bearable.
We're a great team. We're the best podcast. Wait, no, we don't say that. We're the best deep dive. We are the best deep dives team in the world.
We really are. But we must finish the analysis. The artifact demands our attention. We have to finish the structured reevaluation.
Right. The artifact, the paper. Look at the top of the page. Look at the giant red circle.
The final grade.
It's an F. A massive, undeniable, aggressive, bright red F.
It dominates the entire header of the page. It's the first thing you see.
You know what that F stands for? I have theory. It stands for failing the 1%. Because the student dared to challenge the economic base. Or wait, no. It stands for forms, like Plato's forms. The ideal form of an F. Wait, I lost the joke. What was I saying? It's an F. They failed the paper.
They failed spectacularly. The collision with the institution was fatal to their GPA. The professor rejected the synthesis.
But look at the final lines. Look at what they wrote before they got the F. They wrote, "We think of Mario as a hero, but he is simply a 1%er of a more privileged variety. The life kind."
The life kind, a newly coined socioeconomic class. The professor has circled the word life kind.
It's the ultimate caste system. The 1% hoard wealth in our world, but Mario hoards actual existence. And that makes me think about the turdies.
The poor, degraded turdies. The turtles who cannot afford an extra life. The proletariat of the mushroom kingdom.
They just have the one life. You listening right now, you out there driving your car, doing your dishes or whatever, we are all just turdies,
We are indeed bound by our fragile mortality.
We don't have coins. We don't have magical gold coins floating in the sky to give us a one-up when we get sick or when we make a mistake. We just have this one life, and we are just walking back and forth on our little ledges, just trying to survive, trying to pay our rent. And these massive, immortal billionaires in blue overalls are just bouncing off our heads to get higher. They're using us for a jump boost.
The imagery is distressingly vivid. It's a terrifying metaphor for the working class.
It's the truth. And the student knew it. The student saw the truth of the system. And then look at the very bottom of the page, the final act of the essay.
The final.
After all of that, after exposing the matrix, after taking down the 1%, after weeping for the turdies, what is the last word on the page?
Perchance.
Haha, perchance.
It is, without a doubt, the single greatest conclusion in the history of Western philosophy. It rivals Socrates drinking the hemlock.
Haha, just imagine it. Just picture this tired, broken, non-traditional student. They look up at the clock. The clock says they have 2 minutes left before the midterm is due. They realize they just submitted a Marxist Kantian critique of a Nintendo 64 game.
Right.
They realize the professor's going to hate it. They realize it's completely hopeless. And they just shrug, take perchance, and hand it in.
A weary verbal shrug, the mind shutting down to protect itself from the horrors of the truths it has uncovered, the ultimate linguistic surrender.
It's magnificent. It's completely, utterly magnificent.
Nifaf.
Yeah.
As we attempt to synthesize this journey.
Yeah. Synthesis. Wrap it up. Wrap up the deep dive. Off the record. We did it. We cracked the code.
We traversed the high-minded epistemology of Cartesian axioms. We fell deeply into the Baudrillardian void of the Dr. Pepper simulacrum. We attempted to apply the Kantian synthesis of empiricism and rationalism to Turts.
To the Turts.
And we ended up in the dark, unyielding reality of capital accumulation, the profound tragedy of the life kind.
It's just, you know what it is. It's a journey about love, really. I love the listener. I love you, listener. Thanks for sticking with us. And I love the student. The student is a hero, not Mario. The student. Because they tried. They tried to bring meaning to the absurdity of the universe. Even if they failed. Even if they got a big, aggressive red F. They saw the truth. And we shouldn't forget that. We should honor that.
That is a very warm, very beautiful summary. But before we sign off, I want to leave the listener with a final thought. A provocation, drawn from the deepest, darkest depths of this artifact.
Lay it on them. Give them the final thought. Blow their minds.
If true heroism, if the very essence of being a hero requires unavoidable risk, the possibility of permanent, irreversible loss, And our society, our entire modern existence, is obsessed with building financial safety nets. We try to buy our way out of danger with insurance and gated communities and hoarded wealth.
Hoarding coins.
Yes. Hoarding coins. Does trying to be safe make us the villains? Are we all just desperately hoarding coins so we can stomp on the world without consequence? Does our relentless pursuit of absolute security strip us of our humanity?
Oh, wow. That's heavy. That's a really heavy question. Are we the Mario?
Are we?
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this deep dive on Off the Record. We love you. Drive safe. Be kind to the turdies. Good night.
Perchance.